Welcome back.
To the tiny bookcase. I'm Ben.
And I am Nico. What you're about to hear is an interview.
A damn good one too. Prepare to learn.
If you enjoy hearing this guest talk, be sure to check out last week's episode where you can hear their story.
Ours too, if you're so inclined.
So, without further ado,
On with the show. It's probably time for some questions. If you're up for a bit of an interview, Caitlin.
Yes, sure.
I'll open us up, which is what's the first book you remember reading and specifically enjoying?
Ooh, I was a very big fan of Brian Jacques. I loved
Oh
Tagger
damn!
Run and all of his Redwall series with all
Yep.
like the talking animals.
I
That
I
one,
really liked Redwall as a kid as well.
it was so wonderful because I mean it was violent because I mean they were, like rival tribes, and then you had that one steadfast group at Redwall who were, the good heroes. And I just loved it. I devoured those books when I was little.
They are something else, aren't they? So I think we've actually brought this up on this podcast before, but I remember quite vividly reading one, and I think the badger splits someone in half, like he splits like a weasel in half or something.
Yes, and that
Um,
badger was a female, and I just thought she was so badass. I was like,
right.
yes.
It's been so long since I read them, but it was just like, what am I reading? I've never read anything like
Yes.
this.
Give me more.
I
I've spent
mean,
the rest of my life not fucking with badgers.
Yes. Well, that honey badger, man, he's
Yeah.
I think full bifurcation of a person isn't common across any genre, really. But that's not something I would pick as your hallmark for.
yeah.
So I Brian Jack is a well, I think he was. I think he has passed
He
now.
has passed,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah.
he's an English author. I actually wasn't aware that they'd jumped the pond, so to speak. Does that come from your father being an Englishman?
I'm actually not sure. I think I just stumbled across it in the library, and I was into the horror writers. I loved like Caroline B. Cooney, and I read all the Goosebump books when I was little.
Oh yeah,
But
fun.
I loved the adventure and like the high fantasy feel of Brian Jacques' books, and I was pulled in by his covers. I remember Tagarung. It was about a very savage otter, and I just thought that was so cool to give these animals these personalities and to show that, they're not just nice little happy creatures, but he actually played off of the animal's true characteristics. And otters are very fierce little creatures, just like the badgers are. And it pulled me right in. And my first story that I wrote, it was like, I think it was like a raccoon helping like a cougar. I was like, oh, here we go. But um,
That's wicked. That's so cool. So possibly an inspiration point as well. Then.
exactly. Yeah, it was a really great like leaping off point, and it just to put you into those fantastical worlds, and creating, because so many times people and like readers underestimate how much work and research actually goes into crafting a fantasy novel, and they think, oh, it's fantasy, you just make everything up. But we were talking about this in another group that I was in, on, I think it was like Book Talk on TikTok, and we talk about how you have to come up with your own form of currency.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sometimes different ways to swear, what their clothing looks like, what they eat, where they like what their homes look like, and so much work goes into it. So that was a great way for me to like start wrapping my head around, and really thinking about those details.
That's
You
so fun.
said about looking at the actual sort of personality traits, for lack of a better term, of real animals. So, the
Uh-huh.
fierceness of the otter and letting that inform the characters. Did you
Mhm.
find that at all for your various nymphs that, are the earth nymphs more stoic or, immovable? Are the wind nymphs more flighty? Or does that does that not come into play in how
No,
those characters?
yes, exactly. Yeah, you nailed it. I have so Katani, she's the main character, and she's a wind nymph, and she's very volatile. And took that because from the actual wind, it can, be like a nice breeze and level-headed, but then you have these gusts, and they just come out of nowhere because she can't control her temper. And the wind, I love the way that it can just form a landscape and just push, and how people cower from this entity that you can't see. And I wanted to really give her that energy. And so I love that about her personality. Whereas her sister, I actually gave her more autistic characteristics, because you don't see a lot of autistic characters, especially in fantasy.
Yeah,
And she's an earthen nymph, and she's very grounded. She doesn't like confrontation. She just, keeps to herself, and she's more focused on healing. So she's like a really good, like middle, like just level-headed character.
yeah,
But she also has her moments with the autism that she suffers from, where she does her stimming is she like hits her thighs, and like will like flap her hands. And that's just, becoming like out of control. And I kind of likened that to when nature is dying. And, we have so many things, from global warming to the deforestation of, the rainforests. She personally feels that, and she gets out of control because she's only one person, and she's trying to keep it all together and healthy. And then I have the third sister, Jeslum. She is a naiad, so a water is her element. And she's very, very strong, and she tries, you know, keeps all of her sisters together. She's very protective of them. And water is very nourishing, and we need it for life. So it informed her personality, where she is like I said, as the protector. And she can have her moments, though, where if the sisters are just not listening, she can, create these massive waves and just slam them down. And I love how there's a scene in it where the water and the elements, they respond, just like in the excerpt that I read with the wind. It was urging her to change, like it could feel her anxiety, and it just wanted to envelop her to make her a little bit more safe in her elemental form. And then Jeslum, in an earlier section, she's just sitting by the water, and it's just like almost comforting her, and like lapping around her, and trying to reassure that it will be okay. So I loved that the element, it's not just a weapon, but it's
yeah.
also something to help them.
So we've
That's
just heard
fascinating.
I think we've had quite a treat there of how much we got to learn about the characters. Ha ha
Yeah.
ha. Everyone else doesn't know yet. I mean, anyone who's not listening to this, anyone who is listening, feel free to go out and tell everyone how much more you know than them. Show them love. So we know now about you writing those characters, but when you are writing,
Mhm.
how do you derive satisfaction from it? What part of the process is it that makes you feel good?
I really like going back and reading my work. And I especially love description. I'm a very, very descriptive author, and I've actually been told sometimes my writing is too purple. So I have to back off on my adjectives a little bit. But I want it to be like you're watching a movie. And as we mentioned before, you can, what do you see, what do you taste, and really get inside that character's head and experiencing what they are as you read. And I'll go back, and if it really invokes, a feeling for me, then I'm like, okay, I'm very satisfied with this. And if it doesn't, then I'm like, okay, I know there are better words that I can use here.
Oh, that's wicked. So you dry run everything through yourself. That's
Yes.
I don't think I have the capacity to be reflective in that way. I'm really impressed by that.
It's
Oh,
very
thanks.
it's very cool to enjoy that section of the editing process. I think, and necessary. I suspect to being able to publish the books that you have.
Hmm.
I think a lot of people struggle. Like I know I've struggled with having a look at a first draft and just being like, well, that's so bad that I
Yeah.
almost don't want to throw more time after it. Um, but great that you can enjoy it and get you sort of roll your sleeves up with it. That's fantastic stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I do lots and lots and lots of revisions, so I've become very very familiar with how it should be.
So, I mean, this is actually a question that we normally ask later, but I think it's necessary to ask it now, which is, how do you know when you're done? If when you are writing a book and you do your revisions, and it sounds like there's quite a lot of them. At what
Hmm.
point, what tells you that the book is finished, that it's a final draft, that it's ready?
So, Among the Hunted, it was definitely one of the hardest books for me to write. It also stems from, a very personal trauma, just dealing with, all just sexual abuse in general. And I thought it's a very hard story for people to read, because of its nature. But I felt like it had to be told, and just for my own healing process, I had to get it out. And I struggled for so long. There was a whole year where I didn't touch it because I couldn't get this one fight scene the way I wanted it. So I couldn't. I had to put it on the back burner for a year.
Oh wow!
And yeah. So it it definitely was a struggle because I had it. It was great, but then my editor said, "Well, we need to know more about why your main character is this way. So maybe add a little bit of a prologue to it." So I added an additional 6 chapters and I really got into who she was before this very traumatic experience happened to her and how that shaped her and changed her for the actual story to begin. And it was really really great just to work with my editor, and she asked the perfect questions to help me dive in just a little deeper. And we finally were able to come to a consensus where this feels like a story now. This we get it from all of the characters, and I rely on my beta readers a lot. My husband is a great resource, and if someone asks me a question like this that I know was not going to be answered in the coming series, then I have to go back and add to it. So just if I'm long story short, if I'm able to be just have that sense of pride with it, then I know that it's done. If something is still nagging me about, this could be better, then it's not ready yet. It needs more revision. But once I
Yeah,
am proud of it, then it's done.
I like that there's two sides to that. That there's the emotional state of pride with it,
Hmm.
which is very well earned, and then also that you have ticked the boxes in terms of the base readers have had it, the editors had their say, all the bits have happened, and also
Hmm.
you're happy with it. Very
Right.
cool. Yeah, I like that
The
a lot.
more we hear about these editor creatures, I think they sound fascinating. Really helpful from the sound of it.
Yeah.
They are. They're brutal, but they are helpful.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So, when you are writing, do you listen to music while you write?
Nope.
And if you do, you don't.
Absolutely not. I
Oh,
can't.
put another songwriter.
I've tried so many times, and th- there was one song one time that I was able to. It was just the perfect mood. And I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Horns by Joe Hill. It's with Daniel Radcliffe, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, his brother plays in a jazz band, and all I wanted was that trumpet scene because it was just phenomenal. I loved just the sound and the haunting quality of it. So
Yeah.
I searched for maybe an hour and a half trying to find that one clip so that I could put it on while I wrote to inspire. And I couldn't find it. And I just got frustrated and I didn't end up writing because I used up all my free time. So I was just, no, I've tried so many times. I know so many authors do listen to music, but I just get
Yeah.
lost in the lyrics that I can't form my own. So I just silence.
So I think I would have the same problem. What I listen to, and I believe you're the same, Ben, to classical music
Uh-huh.
because it doesn't have words. Because
That would be
otherwise
the
I'll
only
just be
way,
singing
yeah.
along.
I do get very on board with the idea of having like a something to inspire you to write rather than to happen whilst you're writing.
Yeah.
I think there's a few times where I've been listening to a track and you just sort of get to thinking about the novel in progress and be like, oh, actually, hang on, that was the emotions that you feel in that moment. You really want to transpose them and push them into your
Mhm.
writing. So yeah, that's really cool. I hope you one day find that trumpet scene.
Oh, it is impossible. I have to like put on the actual film.
Oh, wicked. This one's nice and easy. It's not cruel at all. What's your favourite novel?
Oh, definitely what is it? The Greatest Game? Let me see. Master of the Game by Sidney Sheldon.
Why?
It spans several generations and it's more like I don't know exactly what to call it 'cause it's not crime, but it's just like a family drama. And it starts with this guy, Jamie, and he goes to South Africa to become rich. And he wants to get in with all the diamonds. So he wants to make himself. And he just gets fooled and taken advantage of again and again. And he stages this impossible heist of these diamonds that are guarded by like dogs, landmines, and guards. On the beach. And so he has to come in from like this raging ocean on this little dinghy raft. And him and a friend, they gather all of these diamonds and they escape and they get out. And then he comes back to town with all these diamonds and all this wealth. And he is so brutal in his revenge, getting back at all those people who tricked him. For example, there was this not exactly a prospector, but he owned a store and he would, give the hopeful miners all their equipment. But then he would charge them these astronomical rates, and especially all these guys are returning home with no money. So it just completely takes the wind out of their sails and sabotages them. So he comes back and he pretends to fall in love with the owner's daughter, and then he gets her pregnant and he just casts her aside, and now he's ruined her reputation, and he's left her pregnant with a father who casts her out. And the way that he is so maniacal with with his vengeance, and
That is
it
absolutely savage.
Man's got
oh,
game, isn't he?
it's so good. And then it doesn't just end with him, then it goes to his daughter and how she manipulates the people around her, and then how those relationships, she's just so it is incredible just to see all the threads that she pulls, and you don't even know that they're happening. And these characters think, oh, hey, I'm finally being my own person, but it's actually who she's wanted you to be the whole time. And it's like, it's so masterful.
So the concept of justified but heavy-handedly meted out, just like vengeance
Yes.
and vendetta. It sounds like that's the thread. It sounds like an excellent, real rip-roaring novel as well.
Oh, it's fabulous.
That's really cool because obviously you can see it. It sounds like there's fairly strong ties to the themes that you've explored in your own novel,
Yes.
which is awesome. When people get to write what they love to read.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, you can definitely see the passion when it stems from your own.
So we've been very positive about lots of nice things about books. So let's go the other way for a minute.
Okay.
What is the least enjoyable trope of fiction for you?
Ooh. Well, I know like the secret pregnancy trope that's been getting a lot of hate recently. I don't like the whole insta love thing that's come up recently. I think it's dumb. I don't like it at all.
What, as in like
Um,
a meet cute sort of thing?
yeah, like the characters, and I don't know if it's not just YA books, but it spans across several genres, and it just feels lazy. Like the characters will meet, and all of a sudden, oh, I just can't stop thinking about you. Like, no, and it's just instant love. There's no work behind it at all. And for me, I don't like romance anyway. I can't write it, and then reading it, it's just not authentic to me. And I steer clear of romance books and even putting romance in my own novels. And with the insta love, it's just like another oh, I can't stand it. It instantly turns me off.
I think it can be quite it can really detract from a character on both sides of it because
Yes.
we fundamentally connect to characters' flaws. We're impressed by the amazing things they can do, but it's the
Hmm.
things they can't do, the things they struggle with that actually let us, experience a character. And
Hmm.
if someone it doesn't really happen to people that you walk into the street, you're like, "Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm Susan. We should immediately shag each other."
Right.
It's just not that's not how the world works, and
Well,
it
I mean, to
does.
be clear, like that does happen, but
No,
the
but
the
you don't you go out looking for it. It's not like, oh, I'm just out here with my adventuring party. See that
I'm
woman
at the
across
bus
the
stop.
room? I will
yeah,
fight
yeah.
a dragon for her.
But I think you don't become like obsessed with someone. Like, this idea of like if you're, especially if it's been written in the first person or even really in the third person, if you see a character for no good reason suddenly not be able to get someone out of their head that they just met,
Right.
it does lower your opinion of that character.
It makes them
And
Mm.
shallow.
I think so, especially because it can only be rooted in like immediate like
Like
attraction, sexual gratification.
physical, yeah.
That's it. Like that's all it can be at that stage.
Hmm.
It's
'Cause there
it's
isn't
normally
time.
the worst in books written by older white dudes, isn't it? When those descriptions of I
Yes.
couldn't stop thinking about her heaving bosom.
I mean,
They're
actually, I think
so
this was.
bad.
I think both. All the sides of the aisles are actually at fault in this one. I don't think we can pin this one just on old white dudes, Nico. I
Actually,
think
no,
there's.
you're right. It's the she had a horrible decision to make. She couldn't get out of her mind the ruggedly handsome lawyer or the
Yeah,
surprisingly intelligent lumberjack,
there
both
you
of
go. Yeah.
whom
Yes.
were obsessed with
Yes.
her also.
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh,
she's really smart with a bit of a beard or more of a beard and also very smart. That's
just the perfect guy. Oh my.
Swoon.
Yeah. And it was funny, like in my original draft of Among the Hunted, I had started it, many years ago. And that's what it was, like in all the books. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I have to put this in mine. And no, falling in love with someone just because, oh, well, this is cool and this is a great plot point. Like, no. So
Mm,
when I redid it, Blake, he's a mortal in Among the Hunted, and he, finds Kate, sprawled out in the mud, half submerged in pond scum, and he's like, "Oh shit, like I gotta help this girl." And uh, at no point is he like trying to sleep with her. He's just and I didn't want it to be romance. So I put like his mom had been abused by his dad, and he grew up seeing that. And there's this great line, and I'm very proud of it. And one of Kate's sisters is asking him, why are you doing this? Why do you even care about her? And he says, I'm not trying to be a hero, but I just want to be a shield. And I thought that was so great because from his own childhood, he was too little to protect his own mom. So now that he's found someone who can't help herself, he's going to jump in full force because he's trying to make up for all the inadequacies that he suffered as a child, not being able
mm.
to help. And I didn't make it on, well, I love her, I'm gonna save her. Like, no, he's doing it because it's the right thing.
Yeah, I like that it's it because I assume people are reading it and they're like, oh, when will they, won't they? But actually, they won't, and there's
Yeah,
solid reasons for
They
why.
don't need to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. They're like, I want more romance. And I said, no, you don't need romance.
Bad reader.
Yeah, stop. Like, and I think it was funny. For some reason, Angelina Jolie is popping into my head, and she was saying how she wanted to direct a movie where there was no romance, how it was just strictly platonic. And she said it's so difficult because there are very few movies where there are relationships that are strictly platonic because everything is so deeply rooted in romance. And I I really that really stuck with me, and I thought it was a very interesting point because it's so easy. It's easy to just make them get together because it's nice and romantic, and that's what, all the readers want, but it's not challenging as an author. And I love doing the unexpected. Like, no, I don't want my characters to get together. And, at the end, they do feel, something for themselves, but it's more like a sense of camaraderie and relief. Like, look at what we just went through together rather than love. So,
So I think we've got a bit of an insight there into your actual writing process. Are you when you are putting together a first draft or even continuing draft? Are you looking to make sure that the unexpected is the thing that always happens? Does that is
yes.
that like is that to keep your own interest as well? Like, is that an enjoyable part of the writing process for you? Is to be like, oh, that could happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And with my first novel, Dark Flowers, it's more of a horror story. And I wrote out the first draft and I was like, oh, this is good. But then when I went back and like when I was reading it, I was like, it would be so much cooler if this twist happened and just completely pulled the rug out from underneath the reader's feet. And I've gotten so many compliments. They're like, how could you do that? And I love that. I love keeping readers on their toes and giving them the unexpected because I just feel like it's such a more immersive read when you don't know what's going to happen and just killing off this character, that means no one is safe. And I try to do that in all of my books.
You hear that out there? No one's safe.
No one
Love
is
it.
safe.
So I've deliberately not stepped on Nico's toes here because this is his favourite question.
I do love this question.
It's persisted over various seasons of this podcast.
It
So
will not die.
It will not
never be ripped in half by a badger. You have my word. If you could adapt any book into another medium, what book would it be? To what medium? And why?
Ooh, that's a really, really good question.
I will also get a lot of authors will awkwardly say, "Is it allowed to be one of my books?" Of course it is, if that's what you want.
Can I have my book in a movie? Oh.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean, you could have one of your books directed by Angelina Jolie based on the
yeah, right?
conversation we just had.
Um, I'm just trying to think. There was one book, it was called The Weeping Willow, and I think I read that in like seventh grade. I think it was by Ruth Green, I think was the author. And it was, not nothing crazy. I don't even know if it won any, great awards or anything. It was a very, short novel, but it was the first time that I had read anything regarding abuse and children, especially dealing with it. And it opened my eyes because, I had a very happy childhood and it opened my eyes that not everyone does. So I think seeing that maybe in like the theater, like in a play form, because
Mm.
I love plays and just the amount of depth that you can get from those characters is just amazing. And I'm a huge fan of Wicked, and I'm so mad that they're actually turning it into a movie. Will refuse to see it because
I didn't know they were doing that.
yes,
Oh
and
no.
I don't know when it's coming out, but I'm so mad because I've seen it. I've seen it on Broadway, and then I've seen it in like lesser theaters, and it is so transportive every single time hearing those voices and just, with the echoing in the theater and
Yeah.
and to put it now in a film, it takes away that magic. And
Well, there's something about the way that theatres are designed and the specific sort of timbre of a voice that's being led by an incredibly powerful diaphragm and filling a
oh,
room. It makes this
yes.
vibration like in your gut and in your bones that you
Yes.
just can't get. You could be in the best IMAX
Yep.
sized screen with all of the perfect speakers, but
Right.
there's something about a live voice that it does make things slightly more sort of like transcendent, doesn't it? And you
Yes.
end up in that moment. So yeah, I can 1,000,000% see where you're coming from with that. I
Yeah.
don't think everything needs to go into every form of media. People,
No.
I say people, the film industry love just turning shit into films. You know,
Oh,
like in the 90s when everything got a video game, and
yes.
then someone said just stop doing that because these are awful.
Yes. Yeah, and
But
it's just
yeah.
it's so hard, and especially with the film industry, that they're not exploring, there's the array of books that are out there and the stories and imaginations that are untapped and unexplored is just staggering. And instead, we'll just remake Batman for the 12th time. And
That is really good though, to be fair.
Having said that movie
I've
is
heard it's very good.
But no one's ready to make Piggy Wiggy Woo, are they? So
Right.
that's not even a working title. That is the real printing title. That one,
it's,
Piggy Wiggy Woo.
it's just two
Piggy Wiggy
hours of
Woo.
a spotlight over a guy in a chair, slowly tugging himself and muttering Piggy Wiggy Woo. It's art, Ben.
The
It's art.
the poster is just David Cameron's face.
Yes. Oh.
Well,
Oh God, you're getting old when your political references are starting to get out of time. Um,
wasn't he like 3 prime ministers ago?
it
Oh
was so long
bugger!
ago now. It's all his fault though. So
Now, Ben, it goes back way further than that. We're coming for you, God.
Zeus.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm getting the impression that you didn't like the Les Mis movie, Nick,
I didn't even watch it.
and you didn't watch it either.
No, I did really like The Greatest Showman. I watched that. I thought that was fabulous. But that was all original. They had these two guys. I think they were two brothers. On the flight from New York to LA, they wrote every single one of those songs.
Wow.
And yeah, I watched all the behind the scenes, and no one wanted to make that film because it was original.
Yeah.
And they said, no, absolutely not. Like no one knows what these are. Like these songs, like who's gonna like these songs? No one knows them. And I just think it's so ridiculous because Hugh Jackman, he had to like trick them into doing it, I think, and he put up a bunch of the money to do it because he knew it would be, so fabulous. And everyone in Hollywood told him no. So he's like, well, we're going to do it anyway. And look at how incredible it is. And it's such a great, inclusive story. And I thought it was so well done. And those songs they just stay in your head so well. And it's because everyone's so afraid to take a chance. And especially coming from Hugh Jackman, look at the career he's had, both on the stage and in film. Like I think he knows what he's talking about. Like
Mm.
It's weird. A lot of stuff that's kind of iconic in the film world has happened on planes.
really?
Like Geiger designed the Predator on his flight
Oh,
out to speak to the studio executives because they said, we've seen Alien. We like what your stuff looks like. We want an alien. And on the way out, he sketched out the Predator, with the string vest and the dreadlocks and all of the stuff.
wow.
And they were like, "Yep, exactly that."
That's so cool. No, I did not know that.
Planes are the place.
They are. Well, you're stuck there. You got to do something.
You're literally not grounded.
You're right.
Just
Head in the clouds.
yep. That's nice. That's really nice. I like that. So we know that you've got a few books out, but what have you got coming out soon? Have you got more of this series coming out? More of Among the Hunted?
Yes. So the second one is Among the Burning, and
Cool title.
without giving too much away, the main character has to travel to the underworld and has to, weave her way through Tartarus in order to
Cool.
complete a mission. And she has to team up with a very, very unlikely enemy. So that's been really cool to play into, and I get to explore, not only the nymph realm, which is heavy in the first book, but we also go through the underworld as well as Olympus and see what those exist with.
Wicked. So currently out, you have Dark Flowers,
Hmm.
Wired, and Among the Hunted. So these are all books that people can go and buy and should go and buy if you're listening.
Yes. Yep.
Wicked.
Lots of places they're available. You can get them on my publisher's website. It's bhcpress.com, as well as Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Wicked. And where can people find you online to sort of get updates and follow your writing journey? And
Sure. So I am on Facebook. I rarely use it, so don't go there. Instagram, I am trying. Caytlyn _Brooke. Haven't quite gotten, a good following on there yet. I'm most active on Twitter and TikTok, and my Twitter is at Caytlyn _Brooke, and TikTok is Caytlyn Brooke _author.
brilliant. Well, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on. It's been great to talk
Amazing.
to you and hear the excerpt from the book. And I tell you what, your feedback was really encouraging as well on our stories. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. You guys, it was such a treat to hear your stories. I absolutely loved them.
That's really kind. Really, really very kind. Right. Well, we won't steal any more of your time. Let's draw this one to a close, I think.
All right, great. Thank you so much for having me. This was awesome.
That's okay. I will dismiss the bots. Have you got anything left, Nick?
I think one more for the road. Peggy, wiggy, wow.
Perfect sign off.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For magnificent beardery, let's cast the Chinicus folliculale spell on Gary Laird. For rich ginger tones on the scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne. And for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?